Good morning. It is Saturday, April the 15th, about 7:45 a.m. This is Shay Gibson with SailFlow. This wind and weather report going out to the Sperry Charleston Race Week 2016. So I wish the racers all the best of luck today. So stay safe and have fun out there. So let's go ahead and talk about winds and weather for today and tomorrow. Right now we're looking at the surface map. The blocking high to our north is sitting as is. We have a ridging process coming down with the ridge axis extending down into the southeast region. So now we have a separate lobe of high pressure that has developed over the Virginia Delmarva area. That may back off through the day today, but for right now it's keeping that northeast wedge. Both of these together keep the northeast wedge down into the Carolinas. However, the gradients will weaken as a result of the proximity of this central high pressure to this area. So the outer banks all the way down to the Carolinas, at least the southern South Carolina, look to weaken. Georgia looks to stay strong, and even down into northern central Florida, those zones will stay strong today. But our proximity to this high keeps us a little bit on the weaker side. So we're keeping the troughing offshore here, and if we look at GRE on radar, we can see this line of storms and convection coming down along the Charleston bump. That's a subsurface feature where the cooler shelf waters meet the Gulf Stream. So this is the edge of the Gulf Stream. We have cooler air diving down over this warmer water, and it creates this sort of frontal activity. So basically what that is a cold front. And if we look at the mesoscale analysis, we can see this right here with the winds offshore at about 20 knots. And even if we look at the surface frontogenesis, they have this area circled offshore for favorable development of frontal activity. So even they're catching it along this zone here. It's just frontal activity, and really what it means is that it just keeps the rains mainly offshore along that line. Here's our weather balloon sounding from last night. This was posted about 8 o'clock p.m. done at midnight, normally 7 p.m. but not actually posted till 8 p.m. And what we're seeing is westerly upper flow. Let me get to the Charleston one here. Okay, so we have westerly upper flow here. This has relaxed a little bit. This was about 70 to 90 knots yesterday, and it's now down to about 50 knots, 40 to 50 knots. And then what we're seeing down here at the surface, what was sort of a westerly or southwesterly flow is now an easterly flow. So it's 25 to 30 knots easterly at the surface. That's what's keeping that wedge, the cloud activity coming in off the ocean, is from this easterly flow from just aloft and up to the almost mid levels. So that's kind of what just is for what the clouding feature is going to be for today. I think we're going to see some stratus decking, maybe some overcast skies at times, and possibly this afternoon maybe seeing a stray shower or two. We'll get into that in just a minute. Let's take a look at the temperatures for today. It looks like we're going to warm up significantly, especially with some of those patchy areas of sunshine. We're looking at about 71 degrees for a high inland. That means a little bit lower in the marine zones due to the sea surface temperature being 64 degrees. We'll probably keep our ambient air temperatures over the harbor right around upper 60s. So let's go ahead and take a look at Datascope for Charleston. We can find this in SailFlow as well, and this is the forecast map, and we'll go ahead and look at the 8 o'clock a.m. reading for the vector maps that we have here, and we still see this moderate flow offshore, possibly moderate gales out in this area, and then out right over the middle of the Gulf Stream. So we'll keep the moderate flow along the coast. This wind vector map actually keeps it just moderate all along the coastline. Let's take a look at the winds and observations for the area, and we'll zoom in. Right to our north, 60 miles to our north at Winyah Bay, we're showing 20 knots, gusting to 22 knots. Offshore valleys, we're showing 23 to 27 at the Charleston buoy. We have 20 to 25 knots at the Capers nearshore buoy. And then as we get in closer to the coastline, we see those offshore values, mainly offshore for right now, and that's mainly due to some of the leftover radiational cooling overnight and the temperatures being so low right now. We have these offshore north-northeasterlies along the islands, and as we get into the harbor, we're seeing more of a northeast flow, 14 to 17 knots there. And as time goes on with the sun coming out and then the temperatures warming up, what we're looking at is these winds slowly starting to turn more northeast. And with the sunshine being persistent, if we get a dry line right along the coast, we could see these numbers actually come up. So the forecast for today is about 14 to 18 knots in the harbor, and then about 15 to 19 or 17 to 21 knots just along the beaches overall. That's the overall gradient for today. If we do get that dry line at the coast and the sea breezes coupled with land, we're looking at east-northeast flow. We could be getting into the low 20s at that point and gusting up into the mid-20s. And what that means for the harbor is that the winds will slip more east as the winds funnel in, and then we end up getting more of a 15 to 19 knot flow there. So it'll always be a couple of a few knots less than what's at the beach when we get that east-northeast sea breeze coupling with land, where that air is diving down and then the thermals are bringing it up into the air, up into aloft as it goes inland, so that we get this bending effect into the harbor. And then the winds actually travel right along this landmass here, along towards the Ashley River. It just sort of follows the curve of that land and couples with it along a micro sea breeze inside of the harbor there. So your wind river may be right along this zone here as far as where the higher speeds may be, and then you may see another one right at here where the ICW comes out. So it's usually a couple of wind streets out there in the harbor based on which direction the wind's coming from, and if there's any coupling with land. Usually the further out in the harbor, the choppier it gets, especially with an outgoing tide. You could get a shorter period of those swells, and then it gets really choppy in this area as you head towards the peninsular Charleston. So that's sort of what to be expected. I did talk about sea surface temperatures being about 64 degrees. Air temperature today 71 degrees, and I think that's going to do it for today. And as we get into tomorrow, it looks like the speeds, we can take a look at the details. And I want to run the models for guidance. Looks like the speeds are going to start to fall off a little bit tomorrow, so we'll probably get into the low teens. So let's run the models just to check. And let me zoom in on this as they populate. Okay, so here we go for today. We have the HER 3 kilometer resolution model brings these numbers up to the low 20s at the Fort Sumter Front Range Light. That's in the harbor, and that's the highest resolution model we have in this suite. So that means it may be picking up on that sea breeze effect this afternoon, and it could be right. Actually, it might be the only lone wolf model out there that's actually getting this one right. So we'll see what happens for this afternoon. As we get into tomorrow, we see these speeds start to fall a little bit through the afternoon, and actually some of these models are bringing it down below 10 knots. So I'm going to call for tomorrow to be 10 to 14 just based on the northeast wedge sticking, and then these north-northeast winds keeping the winds up just a little bit through Sunday p.m. And I think that's going to do it for the Chucktown wind report and the latest wind report for the Sperry Charleston Race Week 2016. So until the next video, which I may be doing tonight, take care and have fun out there. Best of luck to the racers.